There should be a battery of international lawyers. International lawyers who can file a case in the International Court of Law on war crimes against Israel. Whether you get results or not, you at least do it. If you are niyaz, Allah will give you sawab. So there should be an organization of international lawyers who are well qualified and well known, and see to it that you file a case in the international law. And we know that many years ago, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, he had made a Kuala Lumpur war crimes. He had made a Kuala Lumpur International Court where he put to trial Tony Blair and George Bush, who were responsible for the massacre done in Iraq, where hundreds of thousands of lives were killed and sanctioned, because of which many children were killed. And he called international judges, international lawyers, and after the case, Tony Blair and George Bush did not come to defend themselves, etc. But after the case was done, there was a resolution that if the former president of USA, George Bush, or the former Prime Minister of UK, Tony Blair, set foot in Malaysia, they would be arrested. MashaAllah. So see what results. So we should have a battery of lawyers, seeing to it that whether we get results or not, we should see to it that we file a case against Israel for the war crimes and for the atrocities they did.
One, by making a lot of dua. So, if you look at the Prophet's ﷺ life, the vast majority of his dua would be revolving on seeking Allah's guidance to be steadfast. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. O turner of hearts, make my heart steadfast on your religion. Make a lot of dua. Because only Allah can help you. Only Allah can make you steadfast. Make dua in sujood between adhan and iqamah in the last third of the night, that Allah would protect you. Secondly, take the necessary means to block these thoughts from invading your heart. And that is, one, by lowering your gaze. Two, by cutting and blocking all means that would introduce such images, because these sexual desires and thoughts only creep in when you open your heart through looking at haram things. So the more haram you look at, the more corrupt your heart is, and the thoughts would reproduce. Block the means. Lower your gaze. Do not get involved with looking at beautiful women, pornography, watching movies, soap operas. All of this is haram. Even watching the news. If the news anchor is a beautiful woman, or you will see beautiful images here or there, block it. You have to fight these desires and thoughts that you get, so you do not contemplate and ponder upon them. You have to try and fast every alternate day, so that fasting would give you a boost of iman and would help you to lower your gaze, as the Prophet ﷺ had instructed the youth to do. And finally, these are just random thoughts. You have to preoccupy yourself with good things. When you surround yourself 24/7 with righteous Muslims who would help you to attend lectures, to attend circles of knowledge, to memorize the Quran, to revise the Quran, to go and do beneficial and good things, this would narrow down the passages of the devil, of shaitan, of these desires and thoughts from infesting in your head. So by occupying yourself with righteous good things, you would eliminate the room for bad thoughts and desires to come in.
Und deine Angst vor dem Wind, wenn du die Gardine hinter deiner Tür zuziehst, wenn diese Gardine sich bewegt, fällt auf einmal dein Herz herunter, weil du denkst, jemand ist gekommen. Jemand ist gekommen. Deine Angst vor dem Wind, wenn er den Vorhang deiner Tür bewegt, die Gardine deiner Tür bewegt, während du eine Sünde begehst und dein Herz dabei nicht erzittert vor dem Anblick Allahs Azza wa Jal auf dich, ist größer als die Sünde selbst. Das ist gewaltiger als die Sünde selbst. Du bist im Zimmer und dann siehst du nur, die Türmaske bewegt sich, kriegst fast einen Herzinfarkt. Was bedeutet, wen fürchten wir mehr? Die Menschen statt Allah.
Speaking about the religion without knowledge, another phenomenon that we have, pandemic. Today, it's so easy to do so. Just open a Twitter account, and just starts posting. Everyone, oh, mashallah, man, I was you know, if your car breaks down, who are you going to go to? Any random Joe? You get sick, are you going to go to a second-year med student? Of course not. You will do your due diligence and your research to ensure that that person, my brothers and my sisters, is qualified and is not going to rip you off. Why? When it comes to that which is greater than it, ilm, it's very, very different.
The vast majority of Muslims today, they speak without knowledge. And this is a very dangerous thing. If it's politics, you cannot speak without knowledge. If it's medicine, you cannot speak without knowledge. You will kill someone. If
Where does this idea come about that seed oils and omega-6 are harmful?
This is Walter Willett. He's an MD from Harvard, and I'll answer his question. I think it starts to come from the multiple randomized controlled trials in humans that show that seed oils increase death and increase cardiovascular events like heart attacks. Trials like the Sydney Diet Heart Study, which show that replacing saturated fats in the human diet with seed oils leads to increased rates of death and increased rates of cardiovascular disease in participants. Trials like the Minnesota Coronary Experiment, which show that replacing saturated fats with seed oils in the human diet leads to increased death in people over the age of 65 despite lowering of LDL. Trials like the Rose Corn Oil Experiment, which show that replacing saturated fats with corn oil leads to increased rates of cardiovascular disease. And though there are randomized controlled trials in humans that show that seed oils have a negligible effect in human health, these trials almost all have major issues with the way they were conducted that leads to pretty fatal flaws in the study design, and I think that they're not very valid indicators of whether seed oils are healthy for humans. Let's go on and see what Walter Willett has to say next.
There are now dozens of studies that show that omega-6 fatty acids are not pro-inflammatory. They are, a number of the studies are actually anti-inflammatory.
There is very clear evidence that seed oils are pro-inflammatory in humans. If you look at markers like HEATs and HODs, which are called oxalams, those are very clearly increased when you eat more seed oils and decreased when you eat less of these. There are also multiple controlled trials in humans showing that seed oils increase oxidized LDL, LP-A, and LPPLA2, that's lipoprotein phospholipase A2, that also have been shown to decrease testosterone in males in the setting of a low-fat diet. And when the levels of linoleic acid are looked at in the colostrum of mothers who have recently given birth, the more linoleic acid, the more of this omega-6 fatty acid found in the colostrum of mothers, the worse the outcomes of their children at 2 and 3 years in terms of motor and cognitive outcomes. There's a lot of evidence that seed oils are harmful that he just seems to be ignoring here.
Did Muhammad use the word Yahweh? No, he did not. The question is now, ladies and gentlemen, prepare for the shock. Did Jesus use the word Yahweh? Did Moses use the word Yahweh? No, Moses did not speak the Hebrew language. If we were to go back to the language of the Bible, the earliest form we have is the Hebrew language, which is the language of Israelites. We have no idea as to what language Moses spoke. He may have spoken an early version of this language. The current biblical text is at least 1,000 years apart from Moses. The oldest manuscripts we have are the Dead Dead Sea Scrolls, and they date back to the 1st century BC. Moses lived somewhere in the 12th, 13th, 14th century BC. What language did Jesus speak? What word did he use for God Almighty as a personal name? You will never know. So this argument doesn't work. In fact, Jesus on the cross, if he was on the cross, he used the word Ilahi, Ilahi lama sabachthani. Ilahi is the same word which comes from the root word Ilaha. Allah, Ilaha, Ilahi, Elohim, they all come from the same word. These are all biblical words, by the way. Thank you so much.
When the enemy comes, do you know what he does? He makes us into small groups so that he can tackle one at a time. And that's why whenever there is anyone who is trying to fragment the Muslim Ummah, knowingly or unknowingly, that person is an enemy of Islam. Remember this, no matter who they are. Sometimes they don't know, they are innocent. They think, I'm a big scholar, let me tell the people, all those guys are kafirs, we are Muslims, those people are astray, these people are hypocrites. That person might be a scholar. Unknowingly, he's an enemy of Islam. Because the only way this Ummah is going to go forward is when we are together. And understand, there will be differences in the Ummah. We may not be exactly the same. We are all members of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. The victory will only come when we can forge an understanding and a unity to fight the cause together, because separately we are not going to win at all.